There we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Employed to Empowered series. We're in the second of the series now on this time together. Today, it gives me the most amazing pleasure to welcome a friend and a colleague that I've got to know very well over the last 2.5 years within the Property Experts, David Jones. Welcome, David. Lovely to
Hi
have you
there,
with
Jim.
us this evening.
Yeah, hi everybody.
Fantastic. Wow, fantastic. So, my goodness, have you got a story? So, let's crack on. We're going to whip through an agenda so everybody knows what's coming. We'll try to do a hard stop at 6:30. If we go over a few minutes, then forgive us for that. We've got a lot to tell you tonight, and it's really, really, really valuable and insightful stuff of David's journey. We're going to meet David. We're going to listen to David's journey from employed to self-employed, some of the expectations versus reality, the hard truths, the challenges, and that he's faced along the way, and some of his wins and successes. And we'll leave you with some final thoughts. So, really, David, introduce yourself. Tell us, who is David Jones?
Well, for those who haven't had the pleasure, I'm David Jones. I'm property expert for North Worcestershire and Wyre Forest, which, if you don't know this part of the world, it's about 20 miles west of Birmingham, a fairly rural area. I've been an estate agent for 35 years. I know I don't look as if I could possibly have been around that long, but I have. And I joined the Property Experts 2.5 years ago. I'm going to just tell you a little bit about the journey I've been on so far, some of the highs and lows along the way, the decisions I took that led me to joining the Property Experts in 2023, and ultimately how I've managed to build a successful business over the last couple of years that's given me a decent income, a decent life-work balance, and I'm quite happy to answer any questions at the end of all that.
Superb. So let's get into some of the detail then. So tell us about your journey then from that employed into that self-employed. Over to you.
Okay, well, I started out at 24, like a lot of us did. I gradually worked up through the ranks in a corporate firm. Got a lot of experience along the way. I moved into the independent sector. I progressed through a couple of manager jobs, senior branch manager jobs, ultimately became partner and overall head of estate agency within a sizable firm in rural Shropshire, where I spent 8 very happy and successful years. I live in Kidderminster and I was working in Shropshire. It was a bit of a commute, and I then had an opportunity in 2009 to buy a half share in a well-respected single branch estate agency business in Kidderminster. Now, this was actually quite an interesting opportunity because the office was part of a group of 8 offices where the original owner had expanded the business by setting up a series of individual 50-50 partnerships. So you basically had a co-owner for each office owning and running their own show. The original founder was a silent partner, if you like, so his interest was purely to collect 50% of the profits. But the good thing was you were free to run it as your own business. You could do exactly what you wanted, how you wanted. You had the benefit of a shared, well-known brand, which was good. So collectively, we had a website between us. We shared things like admin costs between us. But essentially, I took over in 2009 with that business in Kidderminster. The deal was basically that the co-founder wasn't involved, so he wasn't taking any kind of salary. I paid myself the going rate for a manager because I was managing the place. I took 50% of the profits, and the sky was the limit. So I saw that as a good opportunity. I expanded that business in 2 or 3 years to 3 offices from 1, which was a really good thing to do. I was riding pretty high on the high street, in all fairness, at that time. I had the option to buy the retiring owner out of his 50%, which I did. And part of the deal was that the business from day one was rebranded with my name over the door. So I won't name the name, but it was So-and-So and Jones. We were a quite well-known firm locally. As I say, 3 offices, and the high watermark was probably 2015. We had our best ever year. I had a turnover of around £500,000 and a 30% profit margin. So this is 10 years ago now. Life was looking good, business was looking good, and the future was looking good. So you might well ask, what could possibly go wrong? Well, the turning point for me came in 2018. That was 7 years ago. So yeah, I was in my early 50s. I was very settled in life. I was settled in business. Things were going quite well. I'd been in agency for a very long time, so I knew the formula to be a successful high street agent. But in 2018, much to my surprise, and I didn't really see it come in, it was the first year my business didn't actually make a profit. Well, only 3 years earlier, we had a six-figure profit. So what had happened? The answer to that question, in 2016, Purple Bricks launched on my patch. Their USP was a ridiculously cheap fee, like 895 quid, where my average fee was about £4,000. Now, anybody with the slightest clue about running an estate agency business could tell you that you can't possibly run a profitable business and charge £895. So I just thought they were a bit of a flash in the pan, a 5-minute wonder, bit of a musical joke, if you like. I didn't for 1 minute think the public would be taken in by this kind of nonsense, but I had a wake-up call, because within 12 months, Purple Bricks had become the #1 listing agency on my patch. The 50 million quid TV campaign, it worked. It was a great campaign, in fairness to them, and they did actually take over the patch quite quickly. That actually didn't matter to me. I wasn't really counting the numbers and competing with them, but what did matter was that their presence very quickly created a massive downward pressure on the fees that the rest of us could charge. So whereas for years I'd been charging, say, 1.5, even 1.75, and that was what I was getting, suddenly within a year or two, I was being told by clients, sorry, David, you're too expensive. We can get it done for a lot less. It was sucking everybody down to 1% or less than 1%. And actually, that is the difference in this game between making a profit and not making a profit. So there I was at the end of 2018. I hadn't made a profit, but I'd got 3 offices. I could see the world was changing. I decided to actually play a master stroke, or so I thought. I closed all 3 of my high street offices and I relocated to a serviced office in an office block on a business park, somewhere between the 3 towns. I figured if Purple Bricks didn't need a physical presence, then neither did I. The difference between us was they got a multi-million-pound marketing machine and I hadn't. So actually, it was a terrible decision with hindsight, because it really meant I just disappeared off the high street without trace. I didn't have a viable digital marketing plan in place, or any other really viable alternative plan. And I, out of sight, very quickly became out of mind as far as the public was concerned. I found that from 2019 onwards, valuation requests started to dwindle because people couldn't see me anymore. I wasted a lot of money on various search engine optimization and Facebook marketing ideas put forward by any number of various digital marketing charlatans. Very happy to take your money off you. The ideas always did lead to more clicks, but they never led to more instructions or sales. So I learned the hard way that that was an easy way to waste your money on digital marketing, things that don't actually work and are not properly thought through. Long story short, I soldiered on for another 3 or 4 years. The business was struggling. And unfortunately, what happens when you're struggling and you're short of instructions is that you then become backed into a corner, and your mentality becomes that I ought to accept whatever crumbs I can at whatever price I can, which is actually the very worst thing you can possibly do, because you're then selling less and less units, but you're selling them at a lower and lower price, which just compounds the problem. Now, really, I should have recognised that a couple of years quicker than I did. I should have walked away and cut my losses. And I suppose it's a mixture of pride, obstinacy, and a refusal to admit defeat that just kept me throwing money at it for longer than I really should have done. So it cost me quite a bit of money to get to the point of realising this. But in March 2023, I did make the decision that there was no other option but to draw a line. And I made the very difficult decision to close the business. That was a very painful decision for me. Apart from the financial aspect, which was considerable, it really meant losing everything that I was about. I'd spent 30 odd years building up my career, my business, and all the rest of it. And it was kind of a life's work and a successful career all down the pan. So suddenly in 2023, I was sat on my backside. I was out of work, out of cash, and out of luck.
Are you still there, David?
I'm still here.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the realization of, there's going to be endless stories repeated of your story in the months and years to come, without a shadow of a doubt, as the pressure continues of downward spiral of fees, etc. So then leap into then when we very first met, and then the transition then into what now is a reversal of all those fortunes again for you. But start with the story of where we met and
Yeah.
what happened, and take us through that side of it.
Okay, fine. So I, as I say, in March 2023, which is 2 years and 2.5 years ago, I'd made the decision. The business I decided to close down. So I obviously faced a number of pressing issues, and most obviously the need to find another source of income. Well, I was 56 going on 57. I hadn't been in the job market for about 22 years because I'd been in business. I'd been a partner and director at another firm before that. So I hadn't actually been competing in the job market or even looking at it for about 22 years. The world had obviously changed a lot in that time, and it became obvious to me that my age and experience were probably counting against me rather than for me. Most branch manager jobs I looked at that were advertised seemed to be aiming at senior negotiators looking for a first step up. They certainly weren't really offering the sort of money I've been used to earning. I looked at a couple of area director roles with corporate firms, but quite honestly, I know in my heart of hearts I would have been a fish out of water in that sort of environment. I quickly decided that nobody was going to employ me on my terms. And I also felt that going back to a salaried role after the career I'd had would have just been an admission of failure. So I didn't really think I could do either of those things. So that put me at a bit of a crossroads. It was still March 2023, so I was having to do a lot of thinking very quickly. That was actually the worst month of my entire life. My business had gone bust. My mother-in-law suddenly dropped down dead. My cat got run over and killed. It couldn't get any worse than it got in March 2023. The bottom line, though, I was effectively jobless and wondering where the next penny was going to come from. And it just so happened that while I was pondering my future, I actually found myself having a cup of coffee and a chat with another agent that I know. He owns a couple of offices in the next town from me, so we were never competitors, but we'd both been around at the same time. We knew each other, a sort of cordial relationship. And I just so happened to bump into him and we had a cup of coffee somewhere. And he just happened to mention that one of his managers had recently left him to join one of these new self-employed platforms that we've been hearing about and was apparently doing pretty well for himself. He also mentioned that another person we both knew was going down exactly the same route. And I think the suggestion was that maybe this self-employed estate agency model might well be something that I might want to go and take a look at. So I did. I hadn't ever really looked at it before, but I went away and looked at it in detail. I found there were, yes, indeed, a handful of organisations offering different permutations of the self-employed model. I thought some looked perhaps more impressive than others. Some looked quite corporate. Some looked a bit half thought out. The property experts grabbed my attention immediately. Number one, because the branding looked really sharp. It's something I'm quite passionate about. I thought the branding was really, really good. The positioning of the individual agent front and centre also appealed. I thought that was the right way to go about it. And I then happened to notice that Sean Newman was the name behind it. And that, to be honest, gave the whole thing an extra layer of credibility. Sean's been a well-known name in the business for as long as I can remember, and that's over 30 years. I knew he'd been a very successful operator. He was well known in the industry, as I say, and I also knew he'd been very successful with the Fine and Country brand. So what that told me was that the property experts will be something very, very well thought out. I got in touch with yourself, Jim. We set up a meeting, had a chat about the opportunity. And sometimes, guys, in life, you just get the right feel for something, for an opportunity. And that was exactly what it was. The whole thing felt right. I was happy with everything that was said. It looked a great opportunity and a really good match for my skills and my ambitions. So I signed up. I went through the induction training in April 2023, and we launched on the 1st of May. I say we because I brought my son Joe along for the ride. Joe had done an apprenticeship with me in my high street business. He then got out and worked for 2 or 3 other people for 2 or 3 years. He was quite interested to see where I was going next. I felt I could do this with a certain volume that would need more than one pair of hands. So Joe and I actually both did the induction in the April. We launched the business on the 1st of May 2023. So here we are 2.5 years later.
Fantastic. So you had high expectations of launching your business and revitalizing what was from your very lowest point into something that would give you a future. What's the reality been like? What's your journey been like over the last 2.5 years? We know, and we will keep everybody in suspense as to what your reality looks like for your performance this year, because that's really, really impressive. But let's talk us through those first sort of 2.5 years, really. What was the reality like?
Okay, so as you say, we're now 2.5 years in. Obviously, I had run my own business in the past for quite a number of years. So from that point of view, it wasn't completely unfamiliar territory. But at the same time, it was a completely different type of business model, which I was new to. So yes, there's certainly been one or two things that probably were different to whatever I might have been expecting when I signed up. And those are mostly positives. I've got to say the main one being the amount of support that's there, both in terms of providing the resources, the marketing resources and so on, and the practical instructions and the coaching in any one of a number of subjects. There's always somebody that can sit down and go through things with you one-to-one if needed, and in group webinars as well. So there's a lot of support to get yourself set up properly and functioning properly. The other big thing I felt was that, having been paddling my own canoe for a very long time, the difference here was that from day one, you always feel part of a bigger entity or a bigger team with as much or as little personal support as you might want. And that's from the leadership team. And equally, it's from peers within the group. There are many, many people within the group who are, I suppose, givers, not takers. I could name names. Mark Manning springs to mind just because he was the first one to spring to mind. But there are people that will happily share the time with you, give you the benefit of their knowledge or the way they might do things. And I think that's a great supporting network to have as well. That's in the plus column. Has anything been harder than I expected? I suppose really in terms of challenges, I was a bit of a technological dinosaur. I still am. When I came on board, I knew nothing at all about social media. I didn't know how to use Teams. I didn't know how to use WhatsApp. I didn't, and I still don't have a Facebook page personally. I mean, I've got one which I needed to set up the business, but I don't really sort of do social media personally, which might sound a strange thing to say because from a professional point of view, we do a hell of a lot of it, and we've learned a hell of a lot. So I guess the pain points were learning new skills, things I'd not learned about before. But as I said, the support network is first class, and we got over that pain point. And you know, here we are, and happily putting Facebook posts up and all the rest of it. So it's a learning curve. You know, you can teach an old dog new tricks, actually, and I'm proof of that. I never thought I would learn some of these things. I have done, and it is all about enriching what you do, how you do it, and coming away knowing a bit more than when you came into it. You've got to be willing to learn. If you come into it thinking you know all the answers, that's not a great start. I've never thought that about myself. I've got a lot of experience, but I certainly don't have all the answers. So yeah, it's also been a 2.5-year learning curve along the way.
And some of the tools that, you talk about the support, but some of the products and tools that we provide for yourself, like, for example, Home Search, have really been part of the foundation of what you do religiously to grow, haven't they?
They have. I mean, Home Search, if you don't know what that is, it's basically a direct mail service where you can look at the database, identify properties which are for sale on your patch, and you can set up a series of timed letters. If in my case, I'll do that every 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12, 16 weeks. I'll look at price reductions. I'll look at cancelled sales. I don't go completely bonkers with it. I mean, I generally find I'm sending about 30 letters out every week, but I do it religiously every week. And I'm pretty confident in saying that I get 1 or 2 valuations every month from that. And they're people who are already wanting to sell their house, they're trying to sell their house, and they're receptive to new ideas, new suggestions. And they're also not so bothered about the fee, really, because they've already tried that option and it didn't work. So you generally have motivated sellers who are more receptive to your proposal. So that's a great thing to do. Leaflet dropping as well. It's the cheapest and most effective thing you can do. When Joe and I were getting started, we decided we would do 300 postcards delivered per week. Well, we got nothing else to do with our time when we started, had we? So you do have all the time in the world that you can make that happen. Obviously, it's easier with 2 people than 1, but even flying solo, I would say to anybody, just get a big stock of valuation leaflets, target the neighbourhoods in your town and make it part of a daily task or a weekly task, and just get 100 of those out every week, come rain or shine. I found after a year we ran out of time to continue doing that. So, you're not signing up for this for 30 years. It had planted the seeds and they'd grown within a year. So it wasn't like we stopped because we'd lost interest in it. We'd stopped because we got too busy to find the time to deliver 300 leaflets. And that's the way I would look at it. You then get organic growth where, yes, you put the hard yards in to start with, but once you've got your first 2 or 3 houses on board, and hopefully a few more than that, by virtue of having the houses, you just will be having many more conversations with people that lead to other valuations, and that's how your business will grow.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And which, leads us on then to some of the lessons that you've learned. One of the biggest lessons you've learned, I love your journey. I love going back. And earlier today, I went back on your Instagram grid and looked at some of the very first videos that you and Joe were producing. And I looked at your journey since. And your Instagram videography and presentation is world class now, without a shadow of a doubt. But I remember, David, to start with, you used to send me the videos and say, "What do you think of this?" and give you feedback. And so, what are the lessons you've learned a lot, and you've shared with us a lot of lessons about how important social media is and how being tech savvy really is. What are some of the lessons that you've had, and mindset, and just general advice from your journey?
Yeah, I think you've got to put the effort in. That's the thing. I mean, there's no quick wins in this game. It's a very slow industry, as we all know. I mean, if you sell a house today, you're not going to get paid today, are you? It's several months. So you have to keep the faith a little bit. You've got to go through the efforts of generating the valuations, getting the houses on the market. You might take a couple of months to sell them, and you've got to sort of nurse them through to completion. So it can be quite a long time, that first few months, where you're waiting for that first paycheck. I think those are the times where you can't take your foot off the pedal. You might not have very many houses to deal with, but that's your greatest opportunity of all, to be out pounding the pavements, delivering your leaflets, drumming the drum, making as much noise as you can. Because believe me, when you've got half a dozen properties to deal with, you just won't have time to do those other things, and they are actually the most important things to do. Getting your name known rather is really important. And when you've got your first property, I would just say milk it for all it's worth. Just film a dozen videos about that property, coming soon, new to market, listed this week, listed it last week, sold it this week, exchange on it this week. Whatever you can do, get as much mileage as you can. So we talk a lot about work-life balance for the business model of a self-employed estate agent. I think it's true. You can actually get to that holy grail of a better work-life balance, but you've got to do the work first. When you've done the work, you then have the chance to structure your time a little bit more. And you can, if you want to, get up and walk the dog in the morning. You can go and play golf in the afternoon. You can pop to the gym for an hour as well. You can do all those things, but you've got to have the mental toughness to think, okay, I've now got to create another 4 or 5 hours somewhere in the clock to get those other tasks done. So, yeah, that's it. I mean, it's I don't work any less hard, let's put it that way. But I probably get to plan my time differently, and that's an important thing.
Yeah, and that's moving, isn't it? You're finding now more time, and you have days off, literally days off now in the week, and that's beautiful. I mean, we're not getting any younger, and that's a gift, isn't it? Really, as a result of all your hard work. I think as well, you mentioned bringing Joe on and nurturing Joe, and Joe's very much in the background, isn't he? Joe sits very much in the background of your business. How important has it been for you having somebody working alongside you for the last 2.5 years?
It's been really important, and I say that knowing perfectly well that very many people in the group are not working as a duo or a couple. It's you're ploughing a lone furrow, and that in itself takes a certain mental toughness to do that. I know it does. I've done it myself. when I go back to the feeling of failure from closing my business and right, we're going to start this new thing, let's hope it goes well. It was a really motivational thing actually for me to have somebody young, enthusiastic, wanting to get on with it. So if I was flagging at all in the first couple of weeks, thinking I can't get the bloody hang of this social media and, oh, am I really doing the right thing with us? I got somebody really pushing me to actually achieve, which he may or may not know that, but he did. He actually, even now, he does hold me accountable very much so. And that, again, when you're flying solo, that's actually a very big thing in your day because you've got to hold yourself accountable. I think I am the kind of person that would hold myself accountable, but I don't have to worry about whether I am the kind of person or not because I've actually got somebody sat next to me who constantly holds me accountable. And Joe has got very much a mind of his own. So if he sees a better way to do things, or he thinks what we're doing isn't so great, he won't be shy in telling me that. So he's actually brought a lot to the partnership by virtue of that input.
Brilliant.
I mean, Joe's 25. He's got about 5 years under his belt. He's been on obviously a learning curve and still is, but he is a gregarious kind of guy that people warm to. So Joe's going out now doing his own valuations. He's doing his own measure ups. He's planning open days off his own bat, which he's arranged with a client directly rather than running it through me. So that's the growth that he and I have aimed for together, because the master plan, basically, I say I'm pushing 60 next year. The master plan has always been that we start this thing together with Joe helping me, but the master plan was always that we evolve to a position of me helping Joe. And my goals myself when I'm 60 next year, I'm hoping to be doing sort of 3 days, maybe 3.5 days a week. I won't be sailing around the world on my yacht just yet, so I will need and want to. But as you say, none of us are getting any younger, and I've spent a very large part of my life doing the corporate thing, evenings, weekends. I won't ever get back again. So what the Property Experts does give me, it gives me the opportunity. It won't do it for me. I have to do that bit myself. But the infrastructure of the idea and the business plan at least allows the opportunity that if we get it right, you can actually get that work-life balance in order, and you can actually plan your day so you don't have to work every minute that God sends, and you can still make a very good income from doing that if you plan it right.
And I mean, I know one of the other things we've talked about is that and we've talked about it in the past about this model, is that all the income you generate is yours. You don't have to worry about rent, rates, staff, newspaper advertising. It literally is what you're producing in your labours is literally your income. And I know that that's something that you've talked to me about in the past.
Yeah. If anybody sort of was listening to every single word I said, and I probably weren't, I said a lot, but I said in 2015 my high street business had its best ever year. We turned over around £500,000 and I had a profit margin of 30%. So in very, very simple terms, I kept 30% of the money that I turned over in my best ever year. That's out of 35 years. Well, you all know what the deal is with the Property Experts. You keep a damn sight more than 30%. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And this year, let's just sort of bring to a close with just some real, for me, just accolade of what 2.5 years in has done for you. And we looked at some figures earlier just before we came on air. And looking back on some of those figures, we talked about what has your year been like with the Property Experts, and what does it look like so far? And so far this year, David, you've brought to market £163,000 worth of fees in listings. You've sold nearly the same amount at £158,000, and so far you've generated to the end of September £125,000 in fee income, with still £73,000 in your pipeline. So this year, it's highly likely is going to be a £200,000 a year turnover. And like you said, you're going to retain a lot more of that than 30%.
Exactly right. I'm delighted with those figures. It's been a slow burner. I mean, I didn't hit the ground running 2.5 years ago and turn over those figures. You do have to put the spade work in. It does take a bit of time to grow and to get your brand known. So the first year we weren't doing those sort of numbers. The second year I wasn't doing those sort of numbers. But if you keep going in the right direction across that desert, there is water at the other side, and I know there was, and I know there is. So now we are 2 years, 5 months into our journey. And as you said, and thank you for those figures, Jim, but this year from January to September, that's the last 9 months, it's really gone fabulously well. I couldn't be happy with the direction it's going in.
Wonderful. David, I could sit and listen to you for hours. I've loved your journey that we've been on for 2.5 years. Some of the key things and summaries that you've talked about is the support. And a lot of people might be sitting thinking, well, it's great, but I haven't got a Joe. I haven't got a son who wants to come into business with me. But you also mentioned back that being part of the community, family, call it whatever cliche you want, that we try and help people be part of the Property Experts. You've got that same facility to go and find somebody to hold you accountable who's another property expert in another part of the country, or somebody else who will help you out of a sticky situation or help you with your social media. So, whilst not everybody might have a Joe, everybody in the Property Experts has got each other. And I think that was one of the points you made earlier. So listen, David, thank you very, very, very much for giving us up your time this evening. I think we do have some questions. Some we may be able to answer, some we won't be able to answer directly for you. But are you happy to take and field some questions? And I'll help as well.
Yeah, go for it.
Fantastic. So Eleanor has asked a question, and it's, do you think by wearing a logo or the t-shirt with the logo on it or the merchandise that makes a big difference when you go door knocking?
Yes, I do. Two reasons why. I wore a suit and tie for 40 years, from the day I left school till 2.5 years ago. I felt undressed without a suit and tie. What I've actually learned is it's quite an intimidating look. It's the shiny suit salesman kind of look. I actually think it makes you look a lot more genuine if you're dressing down a little bit, and it gives trust to the brand when people can see you wearing it on your shirt.
Brilliant. And I know you touched on this before, but someone's asked, what's your best marketing advice? So what is your best advice for, gaining a listing or,
Well, I have touched on them both. The home search letters are a very cost-effective thing to do. I send an average of 30 letters out per week. That probably costs me about 15 quid. What's that over a year? Not very much. And I get a couple of valuations every month from that. You've got to do it every week, though. You've got to just do it every single week. So those people get a letter week 4, week 8, week 12, and they might not call you the first letter they get, or even the second, but by the third time they've heard from you, they probably haven't heard much from their own agent. So I would actually say that's a really cost-effective use of about £750 in a year. I would also say with the leaflets, just order a big batch of about 5,000 of them. Get your house valued with a nice picture on it. Just drop them through. I would say be selective. Not every house in town. I work on the basis that if I'm going to do a job for somebody, I'd like it to at least pay its way. So I only market myself really at houses above about 350,000. I got to pick a number from somewhere, and I just decided that even at 1%, that's still £3,500. That's really the starting point for where I want my average fees to be. My average fee is more than that, but I wouldn't really want to do all the work that I do for less than that. So that would be the other advice. Target your marketing so that if you do get a call, you do get an instruction, it's the bigger, better jobs.
Fantastic. Right. We do have a few more questions, but we're not going to be able to answer them. We're very limited for time. We've run over a few minutes already. It leaves me just to say a huge thank you, David, for joining us, and always for Shauna for helping us host our webinars. So thank you for everybody for joining as well. And David, thank you so much for sharing your journey in your life with us. Thank you very much.
Been a pleasure. If anybody in the group wants to contact me separately tomorrow, whatever, drop me a message anytime. It is a support network. I'm happy to sort of put into things as well as get out of things. So yeah, it's all part of a team, and I've been pleased to be part of it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Fantastic.
Cheers. Yeah, bye-bye.